Hello everyone. Now we are going to do CAT 2024 slot 2, RC number 3 and RC number 4. This is Shubhayu from IMS Lucknow. ये पहले हम ये RC को चेक कर लेते हैं. First one is regarding technology and its historical impacts. जो जो टेक्नोलॉजी हिस्ट्री में डिस्कवर हुआ है, वो एसी हो, वो प्रिंटिंग प्रेस हो, उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट रहा है, उसका रिलेटेड क्या पर्टिकुलर फर्दर इन्वेंशंस हुआ है. So this is our first RC. Second, if we talk about the second RC, it is regarding peer review. कोई जर्नल को कोई पर्टिकुलर एसोसिएटेड पर्टिकुलर जो रिसर्चर है वो रिव्यू कर रहा है, उसके रिगार्डिंग हम लोग का सेकेंड आरसी होगा इन दिस पर्टिकुलर स्लॉट. सो these are the two RCs that has come in 2024 slot number 2. As we always do, चलिए पहले हम RC को पढ़ेंगे, RC को समझेंगे, उसके बाद हम क्वेश्चन पे जाएंगे एंड क्वेश्चन को चेक करेंगे. So first paragraph of the first RC says the history of any major technological or industrial advance is inevitably shadowed by a less predictable history of unintended consequences and secondary effects, what economics sometimes call externalities. Sometimes those consequences are innocuous ones and even beneficial. Gutenberg invents the printing press and literacy rates rise, which causes a significant part of the reading public to require spectacles for the first time, which creates a surge of investment in lens making across Europe, which leads to the invention of telescope and microscope. So first paragraph क्या बोल रहा है? First paragraph बोल रहा है गुटनबर्ग ने प्रिंटिंग प्रेस इन्वेंट किया, उसके लिए लिटरेसी रेट बढ़ा, लोग पढ़ने लगे, तो स्पेक्स का रिक्वायरमेंट हुआ, स्पेक्स पे रिसर्च हुआ, उसमें जो इन्वेंशंस हुआ उसमें टेलीस्कोप एंड माइक्रोस्कोप बन गया. So telescope and microscope and the specs fall apart is basically the secondary particular discovery, the secondary effects of Gutenberg's primary discovery of printing press. So the entire paragraph is between the connection between primary invention and the secondary particular inventions that came out of it. I hope the first paragraph is clear for everyone. Going to the second particular paragraph, it says, sometimes the secondary effects seem to belong to an entirely different sphere of society. When Willis Carrier hit upon the idea of air conditioning, the technology was primarily intended for industrial use, ensuring cool, dry air for factories that requires low humidity environment. But it touched off one of the largest migrations in the history of the United States, enabling the rise of metropolitan areas like Phoenix and Las Vegas that barely existed when Carrier first started tinkering with the idea in the early 1900s. So once again, just like Gutenberg's printing press, when Willis Carrier invented the AC, it was meant for industrial use. धीरे धीरे वो इंडस्ट्रियल यूज से धीरे धीरे टू द पर्टिकुलर कंज्यूमर वाला यूज एंड हाउस वाला यूज पे change हो गया, and it led to the biggest particular migration in the United States, and different particular urban centers like Phoenix and Las Vegas came into picture. Once again, it is talking about the primary effect and the secondary effect of the initial inventions. Third paragraph continues on the same note. It says, sometimes the unintended consequences comes about when consumers use an invention in a surprising way. Edison famously thought his phonograph, which is sometimes called the talking machine, would primarily be used to take dictation. But then, later innovators discovered a much larger audience willing to pay for musical recordings made on descendants of Edison's original invention. तो एडिसन ने क्या इन्वेंट किया था? फोनोग्राफ. उसके पर्टिकुलर आगे वाला टाइम में एडिसन का जो इन्वेंशन है उसको चेंज कर दिया गया. In other cases, original innovation comes into the world disguised as a plaything, the way the animatronic dolls of the mid 1700s inspired Jacquard to invent the first programmable loom, and Charles Babbage to invent the first machine that the modern definition of computer, setting the stage for revolution of programmable technology that would transform 21st century in a countless way. So we are having the example of Edison, Jacquard's loom, चार्ल्स बैबेज, which started off as a plaything, मतलब वो खेल खेल में स्टार्ट हुआ था, बट उसके बाद वो डिस्कवरी पहुंच जाता है ऐसे काइंड ऑफ स्टेजेस पे जहाँ पे इट कैन इन्फ्लुएंस the human civilization, just like the computer or the programmable technology that the paragraph talks about. Coming to the third last paragraph, it says, we live under the gathering storm of modern history's most momentous unintended consequence. So now the paragraph is slowly talking about something which is negative. It says, carbon based climate change. So this is the gathering storm, because carbon change, climate change, ये हम लोग का जमाने का सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है, दैट इज क्लाइमेट चेंज, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग एंड सच इश्यूज. Imagine the vast sweep of inventors whose ideas started the Industrial Revolution, all the entrepreneurs and scientists and hobbyists who had a hand in bringing it about. Line up 1,000 of them, ask them all what they had been hoping to do with their work. Not one would say that their intent had been to deposit enough carbon in the atmosphere to create greenhouse effects that trapped heat at the surface of the planet, and yet here we are. So basically, जो particular invention लोगों ने किया, be it a scientist or be it an entrepreneur, be it a hobbyist, किसी का मकसद ये नहीं था कि एटमॉस्फेयर को कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड से भर देंगे, बट वही हुआ. That was the particular bad effect which happened because of the primary inventions. Coming to the next part, it says ethyl, leaded fuel, and freon belong to the same general class of secondary effects. Innovations whose unintended consequences stem from some kind of waste byproduct that they emit. But the potential health threats of ethyl unleaded fuel were visible in the 1920s, unlike, say, the long-term effects of atmospheric carbon buildup in the early days of Industrial Revolution. So, बहुत पहले से ये हो रहा था, फ्रॉम इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन से ही ये कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का प्रॉब्लम चल रहा था. बट ये जो एथिल एंड फ्रेन है, दिस बिलोंग टू मोर रिसेंट वंस फ्रॉम 1920s. बट ये प्रॉब्लम नया वाला नहीं है, ये पुराना वाला प्रॉब्लम ही है. Indeed, it is reasonable to see CFCs as a forerunner of the kind of threat we will most likely face in the coming decades, as it becomes increasingly possible for individuals, small groups to create new scientific advances through chemistry or biotechnology or material science, setting off unintended consequences that reverberates on a global scale. So the last paragraph or the conclusion is that uh, chlorofluorocarbons is some kind of a threat which is a secondary effect. जो आज के ज़माने में जो इन्वेंशन चल रहा है, कोई भी इन्वेंशन कर पा रहा है, ठीक है, उसका ये इफेक्ट हो सकता है, and this can have a strong long lasting effect on our entire civilization. Once again, to sum it up, the paragraph is about scientific inventions which started off as primary inventions, and then it leads to further inventions which may be good or may be bad. That is the particular paragraph all about. I hope the paragraph is clear enough for everyone. देखिए paragraph once again is not so difficult. Paragraph is understandable. Paragraph is in terms of vocabs, in terms of presentation styles, it is quite doable. Chal, let us go to the first question that we have with the given paragraph. First question says that the author lists all the following examples as externalities of major technical advances except. So let's understand the questions. Let's focus on this particular word, externalities. Now, you get this particular word externalities in the first particular paragraph itself. So what does externality stand for? Is it the primary particular discovery or the secondary discovery? देखिए एक बार फर्स्ट लाइन हम पढ़ लेते हैं. It says the history of any major technology or industrial advance is inevitably shadowed by a less predictable history of unintended consequences and secondary effects, what economics called externalities. So these externalities are basically the secondary effects. तो हमें कौन सा वाला मार्क करना है एज आंसर? इट सेज एक्सेप्ट, मतलब कौन सा वाला सेकेंडरी इफेक्ट नहीं है. Let's go to the options. Option number 1, buildup of chlorofluorocarbons in the atmosphere. So if you go to the last paragraph, it does talk about this particular thing, and hence it is there in the paragraph. Option number C, application of J-card loom to modern IT programming. So option number C talks about the IT programming J-card loom wala connection. So this is also there in the given paragraph. Now coming to, yeah, here we have the J-card loom and the first programmable loom. Okay. Then we have extension of phonograph to large scale recording and music. This is also there in this Edison wala particular paragraph. I guess everybody's clear with all these particular parts. Now, if we move on to option number B, it says cooling and dehumidifying of factories through air conditioning. Now, this is not a kind of externality. This is the primary particular reason. Cooling and dehumidifying factories through air conditioning is directly given in the paragraph, and hence this cannot be termed as a externality. I guess everybody is clear with this particular part. So this is directly present, and hence this will be my direct answer. So question number one, something which is an accept answer, is option number B. Is everybody clear with question number one? Oh, question number one. Let us move on to the next particular question. Question says that which of the following best conveys the main point of the first paragraph? So once again, what is the first paragraph talking about? If I talk to come to this particular paragraph, it is talking about that primary inventions often leading to secondary inventions. The example given here is of Gutenberg inventing this particular uh, printing press, increase in literacy, increase in the kind of number of people wearing specs. Finally, it leads to investment in lens making across Europe, which leads to the discovery of telescope and microscope. So ये chain of events यहाँ पे बोला जा रहा है. So basically the paragraph is, this particular first paragraph is about how primary particular invention leads to a chain of other events. So if we go to this particular question number two, point number two, it says the full impact of technological advances cannot be estimated in the short run, as the ripple effects often extend far beyond original content. Now, when you talk about ripple effect, we are talking about secondary effect or externalities. When you talk about original intent, we are talking about the primary intent, or uh, let's say Gutenberg inventing the printing press. And hence point number two is the correct answer. अगर हम दूसरा ऑप्शन चेक करेंगे, if we check the other options, for example, if we check option number 2, point number A, it says that the secondary effects of most major technological advances in the past, especially if they were unintended, have turned out to be beneficial. Now, especially if they were unintended, have turned out to be beneficial. This is contradictory to the given paragraph. Paragraph में ऐसा दिया गया नहीं है. And hence, point number A cannot be the correct answer. C says that it is important to judge an invention not by its immediate outcomes, but by the holistic impact of secondary effects. Now, this is kind of taking this point to a far extent, far-fetched particular limit. तो हम गुटनबर्ग का जो प्रिंटिंग प्रेस है उसका जो इफेक्ट हम मेजर करेंगे टेलीस्कोप एंड माइक्रोस्कोप से, ये सही बात नहीं है. टेलीस्कोप एंड माइक्रोस्कोप इन्वेंशन इज अ बाई प्रोडक्ट, सो दे हैव कंट्रीब्यूटेड और मेड दिस पर्टिकुलर इन्वेंशन बेटर. बट ऐसा नहीं कि टेलीस्कोप एंड माइक्रोस्कोप इन्वेंशन ना होता तो गुटनबर्ग का प्रिंटिंग प्रेस would have been kind of sidelined, or it would have lost its importance. So C is not possible. Coming to D, the entire impact of a technological advance should be evaluated with the boost its secondary effect gives to generating further technological advances. The same kind of logic that applies to option number C, the basis for its elimination can be applied to option number D, as this is also taking the discussion to a bit more extent than it is possible. So question number 2, once again, correct answer will be option number B. Is everybody clear with question number 2? Chaliye, moving on to question number 3. It says that Carrier, Babbage, and Edison are mentioned in the paragraph to illustrate the author's point that. Now, where do you have Carrier? You have Carrier in the third paragraph. You have Edison in the third paragraph as well. Charles Babbage, you have in the third paragraph. And Willis Carrier is in the second paragraph. Everybody has found these people. Now, what is the particular question saying? That Carrier, Babbage, and Edison are mentioned in the passage to illustrate the author's point that. Now, what is the author's point? That when they started these particular inventions, when they made these inventions, let's go to this particular line which says that, but then later innovations come to this particular part. It says, but then later innovators discovered a much larger audience willing to pay for the musical recordings made on descendants of Edison's original inventions. In other cases, original innovations comes into the world disguised as playthings. Now, if you come to the lower parts, it says that Charles Babbage to invent the first machine that the modern definition of computer, setting the stage for revolution in programmable technology that would transform the 21st century in countless ways. So, इसका मतलब यही है ना विलियस कैरियर एडिसन और चार्ल्स बैबेज को पता था कि आगे चल के उसका जो डिस्कवरी है वो इतना अहम हो जाएगा, वो इतना ग्रेट हो जाएगा. एंड हिंस इफ यू गो टू दिस पर्टिकुलर पार्ट, come to option number B, it says these inventors could not have visualized the eventual impact of their inventions on society. And hence, option number B is the correct answer for question number 3. Is everybody clear with question number 3? Okay. Moving on to question number 4. Question number 4 says we can assume that the author would support all the following views except. Now, author सब viewpoints kind of support करेगा, कौन सा वाला support नहीं करेगा. Now, this one is a long question. ये question करने के लिए मुझे पूरा paragraph पढ़ने का ज़रूरत है. But overall, since the paragraph is on the easier side, we can kind of term this particular question as comparatively easy. It does not say, for example, very difficult. Now, if you go to option number 1, it says, while technological advances in the past have had innocuous and beneficial outcomes, more recent advances have the potential to be more threatening globally. तो देखिए, first and foremost, ये हमें लग सकता है कि it is there in the paragraph. When you come to this particular CFC वाला particular part, and we are talking about ethylene and freon, and when we talk about this particular part, it seems that this is of a particular recent origin. While technological advances in the past have innocuous beneficial outcomes, more recent advances have the potential to be more threatening globally. Now, it seems that this is a recent phenomenon, but आप इसको नजदीक से check करेंगे, it says that, come to this line, this particular part, which says, but the potential health threats of ethylene unleaded fuel were visible in 19s, unlike, say, the long-term effects of atmospheric carbon buildup in the early days of industrial revolution. So we are talking about a time when industrial revolution happened. तो ये problem तभी से था. ये say for example recent phenomena नहीं है. So we cannot term this as recent advances. And hence question number 4, my correct answer is going to be option number A. If I go to option number B, it says the byproducts of related fuel rather than the fuel itself were responsible for building the carbon related gases in the atmosphere. Yes, in the last 2 paragraphs as we have marked, it is there in the last 2 paragraphs. Point number C says it has become far easier for people today to bring out innovations with dire worldwide consequences than it was earlier. This is also given. If we come to the last paragraph, it says that, come to this paragraph, indeed, it is reasonable to see CFC as a forerunner to the kind of threat we will most likely face in the coming decades. Now, uske wala jo line hai usko padhiye. As it becomes increasingly possible for individuals, small groups, to create new scientific advances through chemistry or biotechnology or material sciences. The ये जो part है which talks about the individual the small groups to create scientific advances, it pertains to option number C. तो option number C भी वहाँ पे present है. Coming to option number D, the emissions caused by a large-scale use of leaded fuel ought to have been addressed earlier than they were. This is also there in the last two, three paragraphs, especially starting from this particular paragraph. And hence we can say the only acceptable answer for question number 4 is option number A. Is everybody clear with question number 4? Okay, overall, I guess this paragraph is clear enough. Not a very difficult paragraph to do. Overall, quite a doable paragraph, I will say. Moving on to the next paragraph. Now, in terms of content, this paragraph is very different from the last paragraph that we have done. It is talking regarding what? Let us first understand this particular part. It is talking regarding peer reviewer, which means there's a scientist or there's a academician who has published a particular paper. Now, another particular academician or scientist of the same particular domain uh, reviews his colleague's particular paper. Now, whether that should be done, that should be made open, that should be done in a with secretive way, where the identity is kept hidden, पैराग्राफ उसी के बारे में है. हमें करना चाहिए ओपनली, हमें नहीं करना चाहिए, पीयर रिव्यू का क्या पर्टिकुलर कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस है, अच्छा है, बुरा है. So this paragraph is about that. Is everybody clear with this paragraph? I mean the topic of this paragraph. Oh, चलिए तो हम क्या करेंगे, फर्स्ट हम इस पैराग्राफ को पढ़ लेंगे, then we will discuss. So the first paragraph says that the job of a peer reviewer is thankless. मतलब they do not get any recognition out of it, they do not get any good words out of it, but still they do it. Collectively, academics spend around 70 million hours every year evaluating each other's manuscripts on the behalf of scholarly journals, and they usually receive no monetary compensation and little, if any, recognition for their efforts. Some do it as a way to keep abreast with developments in their field. Some simply see it as a duty to the discipline. Either way, academic publishing would likely crumble without them. तो क्यों करते हैं, इतना थैंकलेस है, they do not get any money for it, then why do they do it? The reasons are, देखिए यहाँ पे बोल रहा है, some do it, if I come to this particular part, this is point number 1, some do it as a way to keep abreast with developments of their field. Point number 2, it says, some simply see it as a duty to discipline. But very important is the next line, which says, either way, some academics publishing would likely crumble without them. Publishing academic world का बहुत खराब condition होगा if nobody kind of reviews this work. और एक reason आपको मिल जाएगा if I go to the second paragraph or the next paragraph, which says that in recent years, some scientists have begun posting their reviews online, mainly to claim credit for their work. So this is the particular fourth point or the second point that we have got regarding why they go for this particular review. So what are the points? Point number 1, to keep abreast of their particular development, do it as a duty. Without it, it is kind of the publishing industry will become bad. And some do it as a particular means to claim credit for their work. ये 4 reason यहाँ पे दिया जा रहा है. Coming to the next part of the paragraph, if you read forward, it says that sites like Publons allow researchers to share entire referee reports or simply list the journals for whom they have carried out reviews. So we are having an example. यहाँ पे एक site का example दिया जा रहा है Publons बोल के, which is basically associated with peer reviews. The rise of Publons suggests that academics are increasingly placing value on the work of peer reviews and asking others, such as grant funders, to do the same. While that's vital in the publish or perish culture of academia, there's also immense value in the data underlying peer review. Sharing peer review data could help journals stamp out fraud, inefficiency and systematic bias in the academic field. तो ये जो peer review किया जाता है, sharing of peer review, इससे क्या होगा? इससे तीन चार particular purpose हो सकता है. We can achieve three four purposes. What are they? It says, if you follow this line, stamp out fraud, inefficiency and systematic bias in academic publishing. तो ये particular तीन चार particular reason हो सकता है. और एक कारण और एक पर्टिकुलर एडवांटेज यहाँ पे मिल सकता है जो इस पैराग्राफ में दिया जा रहा है. इट सेज peer review data could also help root out bias. The bias is भेदभाव करना. तो किसके किसके ऊपर भेदभाव किया जा रहा है, किसके संग भेदभाव किया जा रहा है. देखिए नेक्स्ट लाइन में वो बोलेगा. It says last year a study based on peer review data for nearly 24,000 submissions to the biomedical journal Eli found that women and not and non-Westerners were vastly underrepresented among peer reviewers. So biases regarding whom? Biases regarding women and non-Westerners, जिसका बहुत कम reviews थे. Only around 1 in every 5 reviewers were female, and less than 2% of the reviewers were based in developing countries. Now, developing countries can be associated with the non-Westerners. Openly reviewing publishing peer review data could perhaps also help journals address the problem in academic publishing, that is fraudulent peer reviews. Fraudulent peer reviews, ये एक कारण है, but this is the same as stamp out the fraudulent peer reviews. For instance, a minority of authors have been known to use phony email addresses to pose as an outside expert and review their own manuscript. वो खुद ही पेपर लिखते हैं, खुद ही दूसरा नाम लेके अपना पर्टिकुलर जो पेपर है उसका रिव्यू करते थे, which is a very fraudulent practice. So इस पर्टिकुलर पीयर रिव्यू का क्या क्या एडवांटेज यहाँ पे बोला गया है? Once again, one, it talks about stamp out fraud, which is once again repeated here. Then it is talking about the inefficiency वाला particular part. Third, it talks about systematic bias in the academic industry, in the academic publishing. The bias किसके particular ये है? Regarding the non-women and non-Westerners. Is everybody clear with this third paragraph? Oh, चलिए हम आगे चलते हैं. Let us go to the fourth paragraph. The fourth paragraph says, opponents of peer review commonly argue that confidentiality is vital to the integrity of review process. Referees may be less critical of manuscripts if their reports are published, especially if they are revealing their identities by signing them. Some also hold concerns that open reviewing may deter referees from agreeing to judge manuscripts in the first place, or that they will take longer to do so out of fear of scrutiny. So, what is this particular paragraph talking about? This paragraph is saying that जो रिव्यू लिख रहा है उसका आइडेंटिटी रिवील नहीं करना चाहिए. रिवील करेंगे तो बहुत सारा प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है. Now, what are the problems? First, it is talking about opponents of open peer review commonly argue that confidentiality is vital to the integrity of the review process. First problem, referees, if I go to this particular line, referees may be less critical of their manuscript. So, अगर पता है कि my particular paper's review is being done by X, so will X write something bad about me? The possibility is a bit less. Especially if, then it says, especially if they're revealing the identities by signing them. Some also hold concerns that open review may deter referees from agreeing to judge manuscripts in the first place. ये हो गया हम लोग का second reason. Or that they will take longer to do so out of the fear of scrutiny. तो ये तीन कारण यहाँ पे बोला गया है as reasons why confidentiality needs to be mentioned. Is everybody clear with these three reasons? चलिए, if we go to the next particular part, it says, okay, if you go to the next particular part, it says, opponents of peer review commonly argue the even when the contents of reviews and identity of reviewers can be shared publicly, perhaps journals could share the data with outside researchers for study, or they could release other figures that couldn't compromise the enormity of reviews, but that might answer important questions about how long the reviewing process takes, how many researchers, editors have to reach out to on an average to find out who will carry out the work, and the geographic distribution of peer reviewers. So this paragraph talks about the intention of the author or what the author is favoring. If you look at this particular line, it says even when content reviews and identity of reviewers can't be shared publicly, perhaps journals could share the data within outside researchers for study. So basically, the author is mostly, it seems, in favor of maintaining a bit of transparency regarding peer review. Ekdam kind of to maintain the veil of secrecy is not what the particular author is in favor of. If I come to the last paragraph, it says that of course, opening up data underlying the reviewing process will not fix peer review entirely. And there may be instances in which there are valid reasons to keep the content of peer reviews hidden and the identity of the referees confidential. But the norm should shift from opacity in all cases to opacity only when necessary. देखिए ये जो particular line है ना last paragraph, this explains the tone of the author or the intention of the author. Let's just have a look at this particular line. It says, but the norm should shift from opacity in all cases to opacity only when necessary. Now, ये जो particular line है, this line talks about what? This line talks about the very fact that whenever we are kind of having this particular thing, we maintain whenever it is, say for example, whenever we are talking in terms of opacity should be maintained whenever we are talking about maintaining this particular thing. Whenever it is not required to maintain opacity, it should not be mentioned. Okay, let's, if we go to the particular questions, okay, if you go to the next particular part, if you go to this particular part, which says, according to the passage, which of the following is not only reasons not given in the favor of making peer review data public. Once again, it says, according to the passage, which of the following is the only reason not given in favor of making peer review data public. Now, हमें वही मार्क करना है जो दिया हुआ नहीं है. Now, if we go straight to point number D, it says it can tackle the problem of selecting appropriately qualified reviewers for academic writing. So option number D paragraph में नहीं है. Option number D is not present in the given paragraph. Apart from this, as we have pointed out, in this particular part, all the particular things are given. Now, if we come to this line, all the reasons are given in this particular part. Still, option number D is not present. And hence, question number 5, correct answer is going to be option number D. Now, the question of fraud has been given. The question of inefficiency has been given. Systemic bias in academic publishing. it is regarding the particular bias, it is given. So A, B, C is found in the given paragraph. If we move on to question number 6, it says all the following are listed as reasons why academics choose to review their scholars' work except. So what does it say? If I go to the first paragraph, once again mark those things which I have already marked, they usually perceive no monetary compensation even when they do it, because some see it as a duty to their discipline, some do it as a way to keep abreast their development in their field. Either way, academic would have been a crumble without them. और एक reason यहाँ पे है, in recent years some scientists have begun posting their reviews to claim credit for their work. So if we go to question number 6, option number D says it is seen as an opportunity to expand their influence in the academic community. Expand their influence in the academic community is not there. इसको छोड़ के बाकी all the particular things are present in the paragraph. And hence, correct answer for 6 is going to be option number D. Clear for everyone? If we move on to question number 7, it says based on the passage, we can infer that the author would most probably support. The author किसको support करेगा? Now, overall, what is the understanding that we have got? We are saying that the author is mostly in favor of supporting more transparency. If you look at the last line, which talks about, but the norm should be shift from opacity in all cases to opacity whenever necessary. It means जहाँ पे kind of secure करने का जरूरत पड़ेगा, जहाँ पे secrecy regarding the peer reviewers identity maintain करने का जरूरत पड़ेगा, तभी हम maintain करेंगे. नहीं तो the author is more in favor of greater transparency. So question number 7, if I go to option number D, it says greater transparency across peer review process in academic publishing. 7, author is probably in kind of favor of option number D. Now, if you go to option number A, B, and C, A says more careful screening to ensure the recruitment of content familiar peer review, preserving the anonymity of reviewers to protect them from criticism. No, he does discuss, the author does discuss all these things, but he's not kind of mostly in favor of kind of protecting the kind of anonymity. Publishing peer review data rather than publishing the actual reviews. Now, he does mention this particular thing, but he kind of mentions that the data should be available if not the reviewer's name. And hence question number 7, ABC is either factually incorrect or it is not correctly developed. Question number 7, correct answer is option number D. If we move on to the next question, question number 8, it says, according to the passage, some are opposed to making peer review public for all the following reasons, except. Now, what are the particular reasons that we discussed? If you come to this paragraph, it says opponents of peer review commonly argue confidentiality is vital. Now, क्या reason था? First point was that referees may be less critical of manuscripts if the reports are published. Second is that some hold concerns that open reviewing may deter referees from agreeing to judge manuscripts in the first place, or they will take longer to do so out of fear. Now, these are the 3 reasons that are given. If I go to question number 8, option number B, it says that leaves the reviewer unexposed to unwarranted and unjustified criticism or comments from others. Now, this option itself is wrong because it says leaves the reviewers unexposed to unwarranted and unjustified criticism. It should be exposed to unwarranted criticism. And hence, option number B, which is giving a wrong particular word, unexposed, is the except wala answer. So the reviewers that do not, the people who are against this review do not want to make it public, not because they are unexposed, but because they are exposed. And hence, 8, option number B is the correct answer. Now, if I go to all the questions, Question number 5, once again, let me kind of repeat the answers for question number 5. Question number 5, answer is D, because it says it can tackle the problem of selecting appropriate qualified reviewers for academic writing. जो paragraph में नहीं है, others are kind of mentioned. If I go to question number 6, it says all the following are listed as reasons why academics choose to review others, except correct answer is option number D. It is seen as an opportunity to expand their influence in academic community. This one is not there. If I go to the next question of 7, it says author would most probably support. The correct answer is it is based on the entire paragraph, but overall the last paragraph helps me out. Number D is the correct answer. And the last one, when I say according to the passage, except, correct answer is leaves the particular unexposed. So unexposed is a wrong word to use in this context. So overall, it's quite a doable passage, and hence there's no particular problem if one attends this particular passage. Hopefully, people will get these things correct with a bit of understanding through the options correctly. Okay, with this, we come to the end of this particular session. Uh, Meet you in the next session of CAT 2024 with slot 3 RCs.